We trust Canadians to save and spend their hard-earned money better than all-knowing bureaucrats or social engineers. Granted, there are some people who do not agree, but that's what elections are about.
That's what elections are about. Tonight's top story, the federal election is a year away. It comes down to Harper versus Trudeau. The polls are getting tighter, but Trudeau's popularity remains high. And our next guest, well, he says there's 10 reasons why Justin Trudeau will be the next Prime Minister of Canada. A non-delusional Warren Kinsella joins us now from Toronto. Warren, your column yesterday, 10 reasons. I want to jump right into it, okay, because we got lots to cover.
I was trying to rile you up.
You're trying to rile me up. No, I'm laughing. I don't know if that's riling up. But let's look at the reasons that you put forward. One, you said, Liberals lead right now, Trudeau wins, Harper and Mulcair lose. Explain.
All of these are tied together. I mean, all of us know that polls have been getting things awfully wrong an awful lot lately. So what I did and what other people have done is kind of stitch together, look at the averages of what these polls have to say. And the bottom line is that Trudeau, since he became Liberal leader in April 2013, has been leading in just about every single poll. And he's had the effect of lifting his party up and also suppressing support or suppressing enthusiasm for Mulcair and Harper both. So, you know, whether you like him or not, whether you hate him or you love him, the bottom line is Trudeau is doing well, and the polls suggest that is the case.
Well, I keep warning people that Trudeau could likely be our next Prime Minister. That's not my hope. That's my fear.
You predicted it, I remember.
Yeah, I want to bring up the Abacus data poll, if we can bring that board up. Not the Ipsos poll, but the Abacus data poll, because you looked at the averages, and a lot of these polls look at all voters. Abacus has been looking at likely voters, and when they look at likely voters, it becomes a tight three-way race. I've been saying for ages that when you see that, you know, the Liberals are at 38 and the Conservatives are at 30, Warren, that a lot of that is driven by people who just think Trudeau's cool, but they're the people that won't show up at the polls. How do you respond to that?
Well, two things. Firstly, you know, the numbers you just showed, it's like hockey, right? Win's a win. It could be ugly, it could be tight, but if you win, you win. So those numbers you just showed from Abacus suggest that he's going to win, which is consistent with what I'm saying. But number two, I am not going to fall into the likely voters trap. I think you were smarter than me during the provincial Liberal election back in here in Ontario in June. I fell for this likely voter stuff, hook, line, and sinker. Because they were, if you looked at likely voters, it said that Tim Hudak was going to get either a majority or at the very least a minority. Well, he didn't. He didn't
at all. No.
So this likely voters stuff, I think it's a lot of hooey. And, you know, that's why I say you can't just look at one. You got to look at all of them. And, you know, for Conservatives, I'm not saying there's something there for them to be panicked about, but they need to consider the fact that, you know, this guy is not a flash in the pan.
I think that they do have to be worried. Let's look at your next three reasons. You say that the ads against Trudeau are failing. The surplus is not news. That's the one that is going to bring about all these tax cuts. The NDP is fading and change has been chosen. Jump in.
Number one, the ad stuff, you know, these guys, the Conservative guys, the Harper guys, very effectively demonized Stéphane Dion and Michael Ignatieff. They defined them before they can define themselves. They've done the same kind of playbook on Trudeau. Hasn't worked. But the key thing, I think, in the column, if I can recommend it to people, is that number that Ipsos found, which is
let's bring that up as Warren talks.
70% of Canadians, nearly 70% of Canadians, think it's time for another party to take over. And when you probe deeper and you ask them who are you talking about, they're not talking about Mulcair. Mulcair's only got the support of about 17% of Canadians as Prime Minister. They believe, notwithstanding his, you know, some of the verbal gaffes he's had and his inexperience, they believe the agent for change is Justin Trudeau.
There's a lot of verbal gaffes, and I think those hurt him and play into those ads that people said were failing against Ignatieff and Dion, but time will tell. Your next three: money matters, scandal scars, and war. Let's just jump straight to the war because I want to get to another clip of Trudeau. You think that the war is good for Stephen Harper right now, but maybe not a year from now.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing that in Nanos this morning. You're seeing there has been a suppression in some of the Liberal vote over the past few days since the tragic murders of armed forces members in the past few days, since the commencement of action against ISIS. You know, Harper looks prime ministerial. You got to give him credit if you're a Liberal, and I think that's why you've seen him edge up a bit and seen Trudeau move down a bit.
Okay.
But you and I both know how people feel about a war at the start of it is often very different how they feel at the end of it.
All right, so a year makes a big difference. All right, I want to play a clip because we heard from Joe Oliver, tax cuts, money in your pocket, we trust parents. We asked Justin Trudeau about that earlier today. We're going to roll and then your reaction. Roll tape.
Do you agree that parents deserve a tax break of some kind, though? Both the Conservatives and the NDP have proposed some kind of measures to help parents. What would the Liberals do?
The Liberal Party has been very clear from the very beginning that we are focused on helping the middle class in this country benefit and grow. And the fact of the matter is that this particular fiscal update highlights that this government is more worried about getting re-elected than about fairness, because they're giving a massive tax break to 15% of Canadians, and at the cost of the hard work of 85% of Canadians who get nothing from income splitting.
All right, Warren, maybe I'm not a mathologist like Justin Trudeau is, but if this is a tax cut to help Harper get re-elected, but it only helps 15%, that's not going to help him. It's not going to do anything. So is Justin Trudeau just trying to play class warfare politics here?
A little bit. And quite frankly, you know, the Occupy message is one that still rings true with a lot of people. Do you think that the rich guys are getting richer? And do you think that you and your family are having a tougher time? And the vast majority of the people you and I know would say, yeah. So I think
it's not true, and the facts don't support it.
But he's mapping out, well, no, but the Occupy message, that message, talking about the 1% versus the 99%, has been the most powerful message that has been seen in progressive politics since, you know, the New Deal. So I think that this guy, if you listen carefully what he was saying there, I think he's mapping out what the Liberal attack ads are going to look like. He's going to be going after that 15% who are getting the income splitting benefit, who are, you know, rich guys who don't really need it or deserve it.
All right. There you have it from the mouth of a progressive. You don't deserve to keep your own money. Warren Kinsella, thanks so much.